You're listening to the BWIPP podcast. I'm your host, Jasmin John, founder of the Black Women in Post-Production Network. If you're in need of advice and insights into the wonderful world of post-production, then lock in for tips on how to break into the industry, set yourself up for success, and champion diversity. Plus, much, much more.
I'm live. Hello everybody, welcome to what I'm hoping is going to be a very interesting and engaging event. Now I just want to start this event by saying I have I'm losing my voice, but I thought I'm still going to plough through and give what I hope is going to be a phenomenal event today. We're going to be covering production, post-production and those creative industries as well. So let's go for it, let's make a start. Oh, before I do that actually, I just want to say we are going to be taking questions and answers at the end of the actual chat. So if you've got anything you want to say, anything you want to add, please do feel free to add it in the comments section. So my name is Leanna Smith. I am a founder of Ebony Elite, which is a mentor platform. It helps Black, Asian and women of ethnic origin break into this tough industry of television and film. It was originally founded in lockdown 2020, but it's definitely ignited from my own experiences as a Black female trying to break into this industry, not knowing how, not knowing where to turn to. And I think that is an experience that I know a lot of people can relate to. So we have got 3 pointers that we do. I wish this point was really swift, but it's really not. I thought, how can I abbreviate it? But empower, elevate, and inspire. There are 3 points I always go to. Every single mentor is a woman of colour. We hope that we can share our own experience with the mentees as well, that are similar to people that we actually mentee. I'm going to now introduce you to the amazing Jasmin John, founder of BWIPP.
Thanks, Leanna. Hi guys, I'm Jasmin. I am a first assistant editor in high-end TV, and I'm also the founder of Black Women in Post-Production, or BWIPP for short. It has a very similar origin story in that it was founded in lockdown and born out of frustration from my own personal experiences of not seeing people that look like me in the cutting rooms. So, a bit about BWIPP. BWIPP aims to attract and retain Black female talent, supporting the talent pipeline in the hopes of encouraging more young Black women to pursue careers in post-production. We plan to do this using our online platform to offer Black women the opportunity to network into the post-production industry and build connections through networking events and mentoring programs. Our members directory will allow employers and production companies to discover Black female talent, tap into the BWIPP network, and diversify their own workforce. So now it's time to introduce our incredible panel. This evening we are joined by Angie, who is a production executive at Working Title Films. We have Law, who is a video editor at Blacklist Creative, and Karen, who is a video producer at Apple Music.
Amazing. Sounds like a very exciting panel. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
So I want to just start by talking about experiences. I am somebody that has walked across, I think, every single genre I can think of, starting off in journalism, then moved on to theatre, news and current affairs, documentary, alternative art, international drama, high-end TV, and now film. So quite a vast experience there, but I really want to throw out to you guys that people at home can get an understanding of what you guys do. So kickstarting us off, Jazz, assistant editor. Who are you? Why did you get into this industry?
So, I actually started editing on Windows Movie Maker way back when. So I was making videos with friends in secondary school and uploading them onto YouTube. And I also was editing films for family members with pictures, slideshow pictures and music and really, really soppy quotes. I then went on to study digital film production at Ravensbourne, and I ended up being the producer for a lot of the projects, and that wasn't really because I wanted to, but more so because nobody else did. But then in my final year, I did a post-production specialism unit, And for me, that kind of reignited that spark of creativity for editing that I loved, and that ability to evoke emotion from putting pictures and sounds together. And then after graduating, I applied for the Screen Skills Training Finder scheme as an edit trainee, and then I worked my way up to first assistant editor with a lot of help along the way.
Absolutely, mate. I just love that bit about creating your own slides, your own video, because I remember having like some sort of movie maker on my computer, and I feel like everyone feels like they're an editor.
Yeah.
Years old making a compilation
With the really cringy transitions as well, you know, like the love heart and the stars going from like one picture to the other.
It's not cringy, Jazz, because I still do that now. I've just done a compilation for my mum's birthday and I've used the love heart.
Oh, amazing. Well, that makes sense.
We're open to you guys then. Karen, let's go. I'd love to hear about Apple Music. Please take the floor.
Thank you. Hi, nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Karen. And I am a producer at Apple Music. I produce the London radio content, and I kind of dibble and dabble into like the Berlin content and the French content as well, but like mainly London. I feel like my journey into production wasn't as straightforward. It was kind of like zigzag. I went to uni and I studied business, admin and Spanish, which is like really far off from production. So how did I get here? Well, when I was younger, I used to travel vlog a lot. So I kind of did like a lot of editing and like producing my own content, but for YouTube. So I could say I was kind of like a producer of my own life, showing everyone my life. I did a lot of video content on my year abroad while I was in Spain as well. So I'm kind of versed with editing. But yeah, I ended up doing an internship at a production company and falling in love with production, and then I ended up here. So it was very...
Would you say that internship was key then? Do you think that internship was what got the ball?
Yeah. And like on topic as well of why we're having this conversation, the internship, the company that I was at was also Black owned. So a lot of the people that I was working with were people of color, and it made me feel like I belonged there and I had a say in like big things that were going on. And I was like, I can do this. So it kind of just propelled me into this career of production.
Absolutely amazing. I'm sure that will be a credible insight to everybody watching this that wants to get into the music industry. Law, let's go to you then. Tell us about what you do and how you got into the industry.
So I am a video editor at Blacklist Creative. And I work a lot across the English and French content. So I'm bilingual in my role, which has come in very, very useful. And we work a lot with Viacom channels, so like Nickelodeon and Pluto and a whole lot of their other portfolios, and also with Amazon. And so that's been really interesting. It's a very young company. It keeps it vibrant and lots of new ideas bubbling up all the time, which I love. And I got into editing, I guess through going to a more creative school, which is where I had met Jasmin. But I was doing theatre, and I had always been quite attracted to the storytelling elements of any kind of art. And then I did film studies at A-level, and that's what made me think, it's actually film or editing that I prefer rather than actual theatre. And so I went to study that at university, and I was a runner for a bit after graduating, and I'd done some freelance things here and there. But then I wasn't really too sure whether I wanted to go into editing or whether I wanted to move more towards VFX and animating. So I took the time to explore that. And then within that, I think the time away from things made me realize that yes, actually editing is what I want to do. Because much like Jasmin, I love the storytelling element, being able to make feel things and, across all walks of life, creating something that can impact everyone in different ways.
Thank you. I think it's interesting that you said you took your time to explore what you wanted to do, because I think a lot of people think, oh, I know what I want to do, and try and go for it, and don't take the time to know what actually is within that role. But I was just going to ask you about theatre. Do you think that you found something in this current industry that you thought you would never get in theatre, or are the two quite similar? Do they cross over?
I think that our industry is far bigger, and it's a different kind of storytelling. That's a good question.
Thanks. I think on my feet. We can always come back to it.
I think that it's just the pure enjoyment, and the way that I can move up in post-production is completely different to how it works within theatre, and I think that answers my question.
Brilliant. Thanks, Laura. Thanks very much for sharing that. Moving on to Angie. Angie, I know a little bit about what you do as a production exec, but for people that don't have a clue what that entails, or I would love to hear about your journey.
So it's really interesting as well hearing everybody's different stories, because I feel like in this industry, everybody has like their own sort of origin story of how they got in, and it can look completely different. So for me, I didn't actually do anything to do with film like at uni or stuff like that. I did a law degree, and following like graduation, I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I think I was a bit burnt out from the law stuff, and so I wasn't like ready to jump straight into it. But film and like books and stuff like that have always been like a very present and like prominent part of like my life and my interests and stuff like that. So I tried to sort of find a balance in doing loads of different things while I took time to figure out what I was doing. So I was working for like a charity, and I was also working in like a call center, and I was also like writing film reviews for different platforms, just like film festivals and different like online websites and stuff, which then got me into, I then like found out about a scheme the Barbican were running, which was like a young programmers scheme, where they basically just took a group of people and taught everyone how to, well, literally that, how to program films and curate festivals and stuff like that. So I was doing like these little bits of film stuff alongside other things, and I think just got to a point where I felt like I would just figure out if I could find a way to get a job in the industry. It sort of crept up on me quite slowly, especially because I had like no contacts and didn't really know like what the way into it was. So I got a job eventually, like an internship as a researcher for a factual TV company. So I did that for like 6 months, and then towards the end of my internship, they were already in like the middle of prepping a show. So I sort of jumped onto that show as like a production assistant, production secretary for like the last month or so. And then I sort of used that internship experience to then get the next TV thing. So I was working in factual TV for a little bit, sort of straddling this sort of research development / production kind of basis. And then Working Title currently still do, but in a slightly different way. They run this internship called the Action Scheme. So while I was doing all of those things and sort of working my way through the factual TV world, that internship came up. So I applied for that and got onto that. And I've been working here for like just over 6 years. So I sort of moved through production. When I started working at Working Title, I started in production and sort of firmly planted my feet in it, and felt like that was the area that spoke to me most, and it was for me the department that felt closest to like the being in the trenches, filmmaking and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's spot on, Angie.
So it's just the thing that called to me the most, and so that's where I sort of stuck myself into and have just moved up through them since then.
Amazing. I was just going to ask what the name of the scheme is. Was it Barbican? Does it still exist?
Oh, the programming one, yeah, Barbican. I think they do still run it. It's called the Young Programmers at Barbican Centre. It was really cool, actually, at the time. And yeah.
Amazing. So for anybody that's trying to get into that genre, that still exists. Maybe you can email Angie for those details, if that's okay, or contact me and I'll provide them for you. I'm going to keep it rolling. My voice is still going strong. Talking a little bit about what I do in production management. I'm currently a production manager at Film 4. And people always ask me, friends that aren't from the industry, what does a production manager do? Like, what do you actually do? And I always pause and I think, God, what do I do? You know, like, how can I kind of sum that up in one sentence? And in short, a production manager does, I think, everything. I might be a little bit biased by saying that, but I do think we are the centre of each production. We're an integral part of that well-oiled machine. And I think that's kind of important to know. You know, we don't get the BAFTA crafts or the RTS, but I do think it is a craft. You know, you've got to be highly organised, you've got to be efficient, you've got to be able to think on your feet and definitely work with initiative. So many people aren't aware, especially the young people coming in, that this role does exist where you are in charge of crew, where you deal with scheduling, financing and budgeting. And I think people should know about it. So there you are, brilliant industry to go into, production management. But throwing it out to you guys again, just to get a little bit more information, I want to really delve into a day in the life. Jasmine, a day in the life of an assistant editor. What can you tell us about that?
Amazing, thanks Leanna. So, it's pretty much in the name. The assistant editor assists the editor. But in a nutshell, we do all the admin and all the technical stuff so that the editor can focus on the creative stuff. So the first assistant editor is normally the first point of contact, and most communication from other departments is directed to us. So one side of it is there's a lot of people management involved, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of emails, but on the flip side there's the technical side, and that's syncing and organising rushes. For the editor, that's sourcing sound effects and doing some sound work or temp VFX, cutting recaps for episodes or assembling scenes, and then lots of exporting, so director's cuts, producer's cuts, locked cuts. So there's a balance there. And then depending on the budget of the show, I might work alongside another first assistant or a second assistant or a second and a trainee. It just varies from show to show and project to project. But that just means that we can share the workload and I can delegate tasks and we can get things done a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently. So here are some examples of shows that I've worked on and one film as an edit trainee.
Amazing. So Jasmine, of these wonders, tell us which one is your favourite and why.
So it's difficult to pick one. They're all kind of special in their own way. Liar was the first show that I worked on as a second assistant, and Tin Star was the first gig I had as a first assistant editor, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I think those two are standouts for me.
Amazing. I was going to say to everybody that actually me and Jasmine haven't met each other in person. We've been bound by our passion of trying to help people. But we found out yesterday we both worked in the same production, which is Tin Star.
Yeah.
But we didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't.
So there you go, interesting fact. So ladies, coming back to you, a day in the life. I'm going to go straight to you, Karen. I want a day in the life of what it is to work up in music.
So I feel like you said it really, really well. The idea of the producer being the person that runs the machine and making sure the machine is well oiled. So when you think of like any kind of video and all the aspects that go into video, whether it's film or like a music video, it's literally making sure that every aspect of that production comes together. So like, say for example, you start with a budget, you have a certain amount of money. Okay, what can I do with this money? You need to think about costume, having directors, people to hold the cameras, making sure that everyone's well fed on the day and everyone can get there okay. Schedules, we call them call sheets. But yeah, it's literally just every single part of a set and making sure that everything runs really smoothly on the day. I'd say working at Apple Music is a little bit different because there isn't that much room to kind of input creatively, because a lot of it is based in studio. So a lot of our shoots are in the Apple studio. But yeah, I'd say production is basically managing a set and making sure that every single part of the set comes together well. Yeah, so like you need to be really, really organized. You need to make sure things are like sent on time, be able to think on your feet, because a lot of stuff does go wrong last minute, and like use your initiative to make sure that the shoot goes smoothly. So yeah, so I'd say production is.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Karen, for sharing. Going straight to Law then.
So, as a digital editor, the similarity between, say, what Jasmin does and what I do. However, we in digital will work from everything from the very beginning to the very end. And it's not really delegated between like junior will assist a midway or a senior. Like we're all assigned our own things. So you're going to be editing from the very beginning. You'll source your own music. You'll, if you have motion graphic experience, you'll do the motion graphics as well. Often you have a motion graphics designer, so we work alongside them. And they'll, do the more finer things, like if there's 3D and you can't quite do 3D, or, they're dedicated to doing that. So they make it like 10 out of 10 nice stuff. And then I work alongside producers as well. So sometimes they'll be based in France or Italy or in our London office as well. And I work with them to just go through every version that I have, and then we get notes, we go through it. Once the producer's happy, it then goes to the client, and then they'll come back with feedback on every single minute detail. We also do the grade, which can be fun and also not at the same time. But yes, and the process can vary. So in the previous few places I've been before Blacklist, I was at BBC Good Food and the Daily Mail, each of which were very different kinds of work. Daily Mail was a lot more news, current affairs, and sort of short form content, nothing that went on their site per se. And then Good Food was food. So it was a completely different kind of editing, and it bonded a lot, or it went alongside food photography, I suppose you could say. It was the inspiration from that. So in digital, I guess your skills are a lot more vast and a lot more elasticated, I suppose. So you become quite proficient in lots of different areas because that's what's needed of you. So yes, digital editor.
Amazing, thank you so much. That's very in detail. I was going to say, you mentioned the grade very, very briefly, some good and some bad points. What are your favourite parts about the grade?
The grade, I think, I like when normally it comes in flat sometimes, but I like when it just finally looks good. It looks great, and I love it. What I don't like is when it's not going right. Quite simply, because everyone has a different eye for colour and stuff, right? You have a different eye for these kinds of aesthetics. So sometimes what I think looks good, someone else is like, oh, we need the tiniest bit of blue, and I'm like, how much blue though? Like it's that kind of thing.
It requires a lot of patience, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, in post-production houses, there are people who are just graders, and big respect to them because it's tedious sometimes.
Amazing, thank you so much for sharing. And lastly, Angie.
Yeah, I feel like you're exactly right, Leanna, when you said in production, no 2 days necessarily look the same. I similarly have the same struggle of when people ask me what my job is, really struggling to sum it up, I guess. But in sort of a nutshell. I guess I would say essentially, and some of this will probably end up being a little bit specific to working title, because I'm sure, I know not everywhere works in this way, but on the whole, as a production exec, you end up being very much the bridge between the producers and the production team and the studio in a lot of ways. So whenever we have a project, our development and our production teams are quite separate. Like they will really do the heavy lifting and the working on all the scripts and stuff like that, and then we sort of take over from there. And I think so when we initially have a script come onto our plate, you know, we get it budgeted, scheduled, we sort of start to have those conversations with the director and the producers about how best to achieve the film, how to plan out the shoot. And in a lot of ways, they do also like lean on us to sort of advise and guide them as to what makes sense and what works and what we've done before, especially within like the resources that you have or that you think you'll have. So we'll budget it, we'll schedule it, we'll talk to the studio about the script, the story, and then all of those other things like how much we think it will cost and how we want to achieve it. Working title has like a first look deal with Universal, so sort of owned by Universal. So we give everything to them first, and then either they make it with us, or if for whatever reason they don't make it with us, we can take it to another studio. So currently we've got features with a whole like range of studios like Universal, Netflix, MGM, Amazon, all at the same time. So it kind of, yeah, and then depending on which studio we're working with, that's another thing that will affect how the shoot runs entirely. So beyond that, there'll be a lot of back and forth about, you know, conversations as conversations develop, about the budget and about the schedule, and the script will be changing and all these things will be changing, and we'll be going back and forth with the studio about, you know, what they want and what we want and how to find like that happy middle ground. Then within production, we'll also, like some directors will have a very clear idea of who they want their heads of department to be. Some are more like open to having suggestions that are relevant to the specific project that is in question. So we might also be like putting together lists for them of people to meet and like joining those meetings and basically helping them crew up on their HODs so that we can then start to build the film out from there with the heads of department. So we'll also be across, you know, the location scouts and the recce's. We'll be speaking with like the VFX vendors, getting initial bids on what that looks like. We'll be maybe doing like some R&D, like the scouts might feed into like research and development of trying to build like a rough initial outline, overview, portrait of what the film could be. That could involve like getting like a small art department team on and just like modeling some things out and feeling some things out, and stuff like that. And as whichever studio we're working with starts to engage more and more, we move sort of closer to a green light, and then from there we sort of really hit the ground running on just prepping the film. And so yeah, we'll continue to be across with whoever our production team is, like throughout the whole process, throughout the whole of prep, throughout the whole of shoot. We'll be on set every week. We'll be cost reporting together every week. Like production especially has to be so deep in the budget, and like having an eye on everything that's impacting it and every change or every issue that will present some sort of change, and just finding ways to sort of problem solve and respond to that as and when that comes up, which it always does. And then once it gets to post, we're also across the whole of post. So we'll have a supervisor per project who we work with, and sort of take the film all the way through to delivery. So yeah, I kind of feel like that does mean that there's such a huge range of things that can come up on a daily basis, especially you might be working on like a number of projects that are all at different stages. So I think it presents a lot of variety in that sense.
Amazing. Thank you for that in detail description. I think that if you're not sold in production management now, you're right, it is efficiency, it is organisation at its highest form, and it's incredible by unbiased. Thank you very much, Angie, for sharing. And thank you all, ladies, for sharing your day-to-day in the life of. Right, I'm still here, I'm still going, my voice is going, but I'm going to plough on because we're nearly there. Moving on swiftly to the next topic, the D word, diversity, something that I know is very popular amongst many organisations and many businesses at the moment. Diversity, I mean, I think can we come on here and solve diversity? No, we can't. The question that I really want to pose is, how can we increase diversity? How do we think we can improve diversity at the moment? Can that question even be answered? We've got a panel here, all women of colour, and I know a lot of people attending are people of colour, but obviously statistically, there aren't a lot of, especially Black people getting into the industry, getting into the creative industries, getting into TV and film. It's a very difficult one. I've been quite open about diversity and inclusion. I know that's something that a lot of companies are pushing and doing really well with. But I guess my thing has always been, can we promote inclusion while segregating everybody? Is that something that we can really work with? Can we do things a little bit differently? A lot of these sessions do usually start with following on from the tragic death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. But the Black Lives Matter movement was actually founded in 2013. I feel like it's been such a long time coming. It's important we get this right, and it's not a tick box exercise, and it's not done disingenuously as well. How can we do that? I guess with Ebony Elite, I'm very mindful. I've set up a whole company that says, get your foot in the door. But I'm conscious that I don't want to leave people at the door. I want to follow them through the career and to the next steps. I think that's very, very important. We're constantly asked as well in film and television, we're trying to diversify crew, but we want senior crew. Where are our Black HODs, those Black production designers, Black producers, Black directors? Where are they? Is it that we're getting an entry level position and we're not continuing? Are we dropping out? Are we coming away from the creative industries because of the lack of progression? I've got so many questions, and I know this topic could go on for a very, very long time, but I really, really want to kind of get into depth of it and get into the nitty-gritty of it. Jasmin, you've been quite open about your experiences as an assistant editor and how you feel as the only Black female walking into an edit. I mean, do you have the answers? How can we do this? How do you think we can do this? Is there an answer to this question?
Yeah, thanks, Leanna. So, diversity, the great debate. I have a few points on this. My first one is that it can be quite irksome to see diversity panels and not have any diversity reflected back. And I appreciate that allies and advocates are actually really important. I have a number of white counterparts, friends and colleagues that are big supporters of BWIPP. But what's different is that they recognise their privilege and how to use that to elevate the underrepresented. So I think that's really important, learning how to be an ally. That's like speaking up and educating yourself so that you can support the cause and champion diversity. My other point is like nepotism. So it's easier to go with people you know and people that you've worked with before. And yes, absolutely, it's easier, but that's also the problem. That therein lies, the root of the problem. I think if we continue to look in the same places for the same people, then the industry is just never going to change. So what we need to do is actually proactively seek new diverse talent and cue BWIPP, which is launching soon. So hopefully it will help with that. But we need to put people on and we need to bring people in, and that's at every level. So I think it's collective responsibility. I think there's me at a junior level as an assistant editor trying to make that change, trying to bring in Black female talent, Black female trainees, and guide them and mentor them and kind of share my knowledge, show them the ropes, just as assistant editors before me have been willing to teach me and show me. So it's just about actively doing that for young Black women entering the industry.
That's amazing, Jasmin. Thank you so much. I was just going to touch on your point about nepotism. Do you feel, I know obviously the nature of Ebony Elite and BWIPP is to kind of bring more people of colour on board or more Black women, but do you feel like as an assistant editor, is there an added pressure? you are one of the minority? Do you feel like there's a responsibility almost that you must have the answers, or you must know people that you can bring in?
Yeah, I think it can definitely feel like that, and like you said, that's what kind of BWIPP and Ebony Elite were founded for. But I also think that we can all be and should all be doing something to increase diversity, and that's regardless of your race, your gender, your age, your career level. It's about all of us doing something to change it. Collective responsibility. Yeah.
Thank you. Very well said. I mean, I really want to throw it out to the panel. I'm sure you guys have got experiences or ideas of how you think, what you think might work. So, Karen, you the first one to take yourself off mute. Go for it.
No worries. I'd say also, I just want to say, I feel like being in the creative industry, we all have that opportunity to give other people opportunities. I feel like the door is not as rigid. It's not as strict. It's not like we're working in an incredibly corporate environment where I'm in an office and I can't bring in a friend to help me write an email. I do have the power to do that, especially, I wouldn't say so much at Apple Music, which I think is something that I need to think about a bit more. How can I bring someone in and do my part working as a producer at Apple Music when I don't really have that leeway as of yet? But what I can do is do more on the outside of Apple Music with the other stuff that I produce, and try and bring on DOPs that are Black, directors that are Black, costume creative directors that are Black, and women of color. But I would say the most important thing, and as Jasmin said, it is definitely a collective responsibility. It is up to everyone to make the effort to bring in women of color. But I do think that we as Black people have a bit more of a push. We can do a bit more because I don't know if it's bad to say, but we kind of care a bit more. So let's say, for example, I'm on set, I can bring someone in that is trying to get their foot into production and give them that foot in the door, as we said, so they can build their portfolio, so that they can have like more opportunities, and in turn, other people that are in higher positions will trust them because they have something to show for themselves. So I think one of the most important things is giving people opportunities so that they can increase the amount of stuff that they've worked on and have something to show for their skills, and then in turn present that to other companies, whether it's an internship, you're applying for a job, and say, look, this is what I've done and I'm more than capable. Can I work at your company? I mean, I think at that point it's a bit more hard because we haven't got the say to say yes, you have the job in the like bigger corporate companies, but we can give people the opportunities to have that work to show for it, if that makes sense. So yeah, and I'd say that's how I personally got my foot in the door at my company. So
amazing. Yeah. I think that is well said, and I think you're right. It's a duty, but it's a duty we want to do. This is the whole nature of, I guess, the platforms that we're doing, that we're spending time doing. If we have got the power to help, why not do that? If we have got the power to make a change, why not try that? So I think that is spot on, Karen. I mean, panel, do speak up if you've got anything else to say. I don't know if we've got anything in the chat as well, Jasmin, that we can throw in. Law?
Nothing in the chat. Law, you go. Yeah, saw the mute.
Yeah. I have been writing down some points so that I don't forget what I wanted to say. Because you've all brought up really good points that I wanted to build off of. And just to go off of the nepotism first, is that let's say, in more senior positions, like, yes, there's a lot less diversity because in a predominantly white industry, they've brought in their kids or who they know likely to be white, and then the progression in at least things like TV and film, from my understanding, is that it's who you know. It's the person who goes, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going on a lunch break, or, just cut this instead for me, or what have you, It's based on that kind of a thing. So then who you know means you then go up, and so on and so forth, and it just kind of carries on. And then for the people who are just making it in by themselves, people who are not as well connected have to work twice as hard, which then means that when they see some people who just know someone who's in this company or that position, it can then become so tiring. And then they're more likely to go, well, then what am I doing this for? You know, you lose the passion, you lose the drive, which is just a shame, but it happens. Therefore, when it comes to mid and senior, you're going to see less of a diverse workforce. And I think the progression within creative industries can make it quite hard, just because it doesn't work in the same way that some corporate areas do. Say in digital, it's a lot younger of a creative area. So you come in, there's things in place, like there's HRs, there's junior, mids, everyone is practicing the craft. You're not working for the person who's still got the same sort of job title as you, but just a different seniority. And it's more what's the word? It's a bit more structured, I would say, and therefore a little bit easier to go through. And there is nepotism everywhere, but I would say less in digital, because the jobs that I've applied for, or the jobs that I've had so far, I applied for them. I didn't know anyone there, you know? So it's that kind of thing where you go, there's a bit more opportunities. So hopefully with that means that people, who are, all different ethnic minorities and, Black women, it means that there might be more space for people to come in and to find their footing, and then to maybe move across to film, to move across to advertising, to move across to TV, or whichever they wish. And within that, I feel like because of what I've just been saying, there's not been much reflection. So people might feel they're a bit, they're not really welcome, or it's unwelcome territory, or uncharted and stuff like that. So I suppose in platforms like BWIPP and Ebony Elite, it means that there's a bit more conversation, and is letting them know that yes, we are here, and yes, we are obviously more than happy to help. And I think that our generation are going to be the ones who will be the seniors that will cause that, who will make that reflection. Because for the older generation, they're only about 10, 20 years older than us, but but for those who are more senior than us, the work's been done. We're not going to get many new people coming in unless they put that time in to retrain, and that's a lot of effort. So we're going to be that. And I think that with more schemes and companies opening up, and new companies opening up, that there's a plethora of things that you can go into with different areas. I think that then helps us be able to give more options and give more space for growth too.
Amazing. Thanks very much, Lord. I just wanted to touch on your point about applications and applying and opportunities. So do you think that there's kind of a change now? Do you think that this is then working then? That would suggest that this push for diversity inclusion means that things are changing? There's a change in the reports. Is it becoming more accessible?
I would say so. Like I said, only in my domain. The thing is, with the way that they will work, is that they do the job advertising and stuff through HRs and stuff like that, who have regulations that they have to, reach some sort of quota. But also sometimes it's not necessarily even about that. They just notice, there's not much diversity going on, and so they try and diversify that. They put in active efforts. Like the last company that I worked at, Immediate, so they're a publishing company, and they own a lot of portfolios of magazines. There we had a society, like a group that was for Black and minor ethnicities, or minority ethnicities. And so we would just chat every Friday. We would talk about new policies that we'd want to bring in, and we spoke a lot about the interview process. And so we were a part of, helping improve that, because we had noticed that, yes, in the senior positions, there's not enough Black people or, you know, mixed or Asian. Just wasn't enough. And so we said, okay, how are we going to do that? And of course, that's a more younger workspace, I'd say, sort of. So I think that where I work, to answer your question, has a bit more flexibility and a bit more space for that kind of growth, and thus helps the application process.
Amazing, thanks so much for sharing. Jazz, I don't know if we have got any other questions in the chat.
We've got a comment from Jemima. She made a really good one.
Brilliant. Let's go for that then. I was literally just gonna pick up on one of Laura's points because that was absolutely.
No, go ahead. We'll jump into the comment after.
Great. Sorry. Well,
it's fine. You go. You're good.
My voice is going, so before it goes, you can shut me up after that. But that was really beautifully said. I think it is really important. You touched on so many amazing points there. One of the things that I did want to share earlier is, something that I do think is important, that I think is missed, especially to create an inclusive workspace that is a good workspace to be in for different cultures and different ethnicities, is learning as well. I think with learning comes an understanding, and then comes a development within that. And I think a lot of corporate places do miss that as well. But thanks so much, Laura. I thought that was really beautifully said. Jasmine, go for it. I'll shut up now.
No, you're all right. No, you're fine. Jemima made a really good point. She said the low pay, especially in London, acts as a massive barrier, especially for women of colour.
Well, definitely with across the industry.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Has anyone got anything to add to that comment, or to agree, disagree?
Just that I completely agree with that, because even for looking at switching to, say, TV or film, which I've looked at before, you're like, that's not great. Whereas in digital, I have my pay bracket. I'm on pay. It's quite nice. I can't lie.
I think that is a good point. I think someone did flag as well, when we're offering these great traineeships and apprenticeships, could it go to somebody outside of London? At the moment, it's probably not feasible, because if you're uprooting your life to come and live in London or a different city, it's not feasible to get paid that amount a year and to still live and to afford accommodation as well. So I think that was a really good point. Have we got anything else to add? I know we can go on for quite a while about this topic.
I guess I will just very quickly also say, just drawing attention again to Laura's point before, which I fully agree with, about like retention, in terms of like, that's one of the reasons why it's really great to see this panel, because exactly like you said, a huge issue is not just about getting people in the industry, but about how you're retaining them. And if people are dropping out for all these reasons, whether it's income or accessibility or opportunities for progress, then you're not going to see people of colour, women of colour in these mid-level or senior level positions. But also, I think sometimes it also comes down to like who's being legitimised once they're in the room, because it does feel like, especially currently, that there is, there's a lot of companies, a lot of places that are showing more of a drive to, uphold diversity and inclusivity, and they're looking at who's in their writers' rooms and which directors they're meeting and all these kind of things. But it's also not enough to just get people into a room. You also have to actually act on your words and believe that they are able to achieve the things that they say they want to do, and invest in their ideas and kind of follow through on that. It does feel like a lot of the time people are taking meetings with people or talking about certain talent, but then actually not really investing in their ideas or what they want to do as people. Partly, I feel like our online landscape that we have access to now has kind of shifted that a little bit, because a lot of people are able to just kind of make their own content and go on there and do their own thing, and then after the fact get these like incredible massive deals. Like looking at what Munya's doing, like from just making these random TikTok style things and Instagram reels and stuff, like that's a real power to be able to not have to wait for that person to say yes to you. But at the same time, I think then go back to what Jasmine said about being an ally. I think an important part of that is to actually invest in people, legitimize people, and like, you know, show real support. Not just who can I hire as a trainee, as an intern, as important as that is, but it's like what's happening from there on onwards. And it's great that we can also do that for each other. So like things like Black Women in Post-Production and Ebony Elite are also, you know, elements that will, I hope, like increase that and encourage that and help that as well. So yeah, it's great to see.
Amazing. Thanks, Angie. You're quite right. And, you know, it's not about, for me, it's not about just those entry level, those traineeships, which I know there's some amazing ones out there, but how can we follow them throughout the career as well, making sure they are progressing. Right, before you lose me completely, we are nearly at the end. So it has been, what I hope, an insightful discussion today. But one of the things I think is really, really important for us to share is what we found useful. How did we get to where we are? And what is our, thank you, that was right on cue, Jasmine, top tip. So I might be biased, but my top tip definitely is mentoring. I think mentoring does get you into rooms that you wouldn't necessarily have had to if you've got a mentor in a certain profession, a certain department that you want to work in. You get to find out more about the role you want to go for. For example, mentor was the head of Kudos Film and Television for 3 years before I got the role at Kudos Film and Television, which was really helpful because it made me stop and think, actually, do I want to do production management? Is this a bit of me? Do I like being organised? Do I like scheduling? Do I like dealing with budgets? And I think similar to a lot of the mentees I have under Ebony Elite as well, you know, you get quite a few saying, oh, I want to be a producer. And they found out you've got to deal with budgets. And they're like, oh, no, I don't, actually, that's not for me. So I do think mentoring is definitely a big top tip, or getting yourself a mentor. But Jasmine, tell us, what's your wonderful tip for today?
Yeah, Leanna, I think you're absolutely right. I think mentors are really important. My top tip is networking. So being proactive and networking, finding the people that are doing what you want to do and connecting with them. I get a lot of messages on Instagram and Twitter, and it's just people asking, like, what does an assistant editor do? And I'm always happy to share kind of my experiences and, you know, a day in the life of me. So yeah, learn how, you know, these people got to where they are, what their steps were, what their lifestyle, what their training looks like, how, you know, they made their journey into the industry. And I'm really big on this. It doesn't always have to be networking events in Soho, because I know the industry is very, very London-centric.
Quite right.
Yeah, so it just doesn't have to be that anymore. And especially with the pandemic, you know, leverage social media, leverage LinkedIn and IMDb Pro, and just connect with these people and get yourself on their radars.
Brilliant, thanks, Jazz. What a very, very good point. You're right. The world we live in, look at how we're connecting so well today, virtually. And mentees that I've got up north as well, you can all be done in a different way in this new world, this new era. And moving on, let's keep it in the same order. Karen, what's your top tip?
I think it's really hard to think of a top tip because I have so many different ones. But I kind of want to go back to that idea of being able to dibble and dabble into a lot of different things so that you can figure out exactly what it is that you want to do in the creative industry. Because the first internship that I had was for, I wouldn't say it was a small company, it was a small company doing big things. So there wasn't that many people that were part of the company. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I really want to work at these big companies and get into this industry without thinking about the smaller steps that you need to do before you get there. And I think at smaller companies, you have more of a chance to see exactly how the company is run, see the editors editing, creating things on Adobe, like Adobe Illustrator, using Photoshop. Okay, do I want to do more of a creative director kind of role? And then also doing a little bit of the production. And I think I had a chance to try and do a little bit of everything because I was editing things actually in my first internship. So I kind of did a bit of both. And then I figured out, okay, I really do like the production side, so I'm going to stick to this. So yeah, I'd say starting off in smaller companies so that you have the chance to see everything. You want to see everything that is going on within the production. And also just to touch on the idea of like finding a mentor, because I definitely have to give a lot of my career to the fact that I had a very, very good mentor. And he brought me in a lot of things, and that is why I'm at the company that I'm at today, because we ended up having he ended up working with Apple on a project, and as Law also said earlier, a lot of the time, which is I guess problematic, but is who do you know? And they said, oh, we need a producer. And he said, I know someone, and then he put me forward, and that's how I ended up getting the job. So it's kind of a bit of both, mentoring and also networking in order to meet people and get opportunities. So yeah, those are my tips, especially with social media as well. As we said, there are so many opportunities on social media. I see so many like posts saying, oh, we need this, we need that, we need a runner for this set. Can someone come and model? There's so many opportunities online, and if you follow the right people, you will see the things that you need to see and have those opportunities. So yeah, those are my tips.
Thanks so much for sharing, Karen. Over to you, Law. What's your top tip?
So my tip was going to be networking, but then Jasmin stole it. So and it's obviously, though, I do want to say that your network is one of your biggest assets in the creative industry, because God knows how many like people I've been put in touch with, or how many opportunities I've come across from the people that I've known. It's insane. But my top tip would be open to change, and don't be afraid of making a side step or a step slightly across and down. It's fine, because it's all part of the progression. You're still moving forward. And, you know, you might start off with an ultimate goal, and then, you know, the opportunities don't quite show up, or things don't work in the same way that you do. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're behind or anything like that. It's just, you know, learn what you can in where you are. There's no such thing as a stupid job. That's what my mum told me, which is very helpful. But you can benefit from absolutely everything from wherever you are. So, you know, patience in the process, and, you know, it ties in with a network as well, because they'll help you forward.
Amazing. And your mum is right.
Yes, she is. She's always right.
Wise woman. Angie?
I guess I would say, especially if you're starting out in the industry or trying to get into the industry, I mean, this can apply to anyone, but just in this instance particularly, bearing in mind as well people who may be the only person who looks like them in the room, or from a similar background as them in the room, and that can be really alienating. They don't always think that you have to be the most knowledgeable person in the room, or have everything figured out, or know what you're talking about all the time, or know what you're doing all the time. I think there is actually so much to be put in just being really present and really passionate and like just nice. And actually there's so much that people will be willing to do for you if you're just that guy. Like if you're just like the person who shows up and is always ready to do stuff and does it with a really nice attitude, will take you so far. So yeah, just that, maybe.
I was actually given that top tip as a runner. To stay positive, people will remember you.
Yeah, and everyone always likes to have that person around, especially
Exactly.
you know, if you're spending so much time with the people you work with, and if you're just part of what is a nice environment, then I do feel like that gets paid back to you in kind. So
100%. Thank you so much. I just want to take the time, while I've still got a voice, I can't believe I've lost it, to say thank you so much for our amazing panel for joining today. I think it has been exactly what we wanted. I think we've achieved an incredible and insightful discussion. So really, really thank you for your time. Thank you to people at home for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Very much appreciated. And we've just discussed and covered quite a lot of topics today within production, post-production and the creative industries. But you can stay in touch if you would like to. We would love to hear from you. But before we do that, have we got any more questions and answers, Chaz?
Yeah, we had some questions sent in. Do you want me to throw them out?
Go for
We've
it.
got some questions. So the first one is, is there anything you shouldn't do on your first job? On the end it says as an assistant editor, but I kind of want to throw it out as anything you shouldn't do on your first day on set or in the cutting rooms for Law as well as me. And I'm happy to start us off.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I would actually flip the answer to this and say what you probably should do as opposed to focusing on what you shouldn't. And I would say reach out to your HODs, so the head of departments, and ask them if there's anything that you can do to make their job easier. Because I feel like production and on-set crew, they really appreciate that from the editorial side of things. And then just kind of discuss your needs and the workflow. And then you're kind of all on the same page. And it makes it a much more enjoyable process of, the project. So what about you guys? What would you say is something that you should do or something that you shouldn't do on your first job?
I just want to touch on what you just said in regards to making people's jobs easier. Everyone loves feeling like they have a bit of weight lifted off their shoulders, especially on set when there's so much going on and you can't really focus on a lot of the little things. So let's say, for example, your first job is a runner on set. It's going around to everyone and making sure that everyone's okay, they have everything that they need. Do you need me to go and get this? But I just think, staying positive and staying proactive on the set is really, really important. And as you said previously, people will remember you if you are proactive on set, because they'll probably want to bring you on to the next one and the next one because you've made their lives so much easier. Like even just me starting off, the amount of times I've heard someone say, oh, you made my life so much easier, can you come and join me on this one next time? Because you've really helped them within their job. So I think just stay proactive and stay helpful. That's just mainly being on set though and in production. Yeah,
definitely. Anyone else?
I would say there's not much that you can do wrong. You just have to come through with a good attitudes and talk to people, be friendly, and also if there's something you need help on, say it. Like, don't try and struggle through it because it's just going to become a problem that's just kicking the can down the road. Speak out if you're like, quick question on that, because you might think, it's a stupid question, and actually people will tell you, like, honestly, I had the same question when I started. So yeah, honestly, just come through with a smile. That's it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Don't be afraid to ask questions is a really good one, and don't be afraid to make mistakes either, because that's how you learn. Lee, do you want to go, or Angie?
I could go, yeah. I was just going to steal somebody else's to save my voice, but I won't do that. I'll think of a new one. I would say, I think I like Law's point. I think show willing, especially if if it's an entry level position. I know that wasn't around the question, it's more about assistant editing, but as a runner, as a young runner, you want to show that you're keen. You want to show that you want to be there, because I won't go into detail, but you are going to have experiences where people, don't really show that they're engaged in what they're doing and don't really show that they're enjoying it. And it comes back to the original point of people wanting to be around people and there being positivity and there being somebody that is proactive. So I think mine would be to be show willing on your first days. Yes, definitely.
And just to add on to that as well, sort of from Laura's point, or kind of everyone's point about, there's no stupid questions, and ask if you need help or if there's things you don't understand. So this is kind of a do and a don't, because it's first off, definitely do that. Don't feel like you need to have all the answers. Do ask questions if you need to, but I think also do take notes, because to sort of flip that into a don't, I guess what you wouldn't want to happen is someone going through the whole process of like showing you or explaining something and then it just not being implemented like after a reasonable amount of time, I guess. So like if you're new to something and you feel like you need to, then quite literally just that, like take notes for yourself to kind of build up your own system of doing things until you're like really natural at doing it.
Brilliant, thank you very much, guys. I'm just conscious that we might be running out a little bit of time, but have we got any other questions?
We do. We've got one that's just come in the chat, and we've got 3 more.
Oh, brilliant.
How are we feeling? Should we go? Should we continue?
Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
We're running over a little bit, but hopefully it's insightful enough to keep everybody keen to listen.
Let's keep rolling.
So this is kind of a quick one, and we can just go around really quickly. What are your hours like? I'll start. Mine is typically 9 to 6 or 9 to 7, but it does vary. It can go a bit later than that. So that's kind of office hours.
I just want to say that I'm laughing not because it's a silly question, it's an amazing question. It's such an important question because before you get into production management, especially if you're going to be freelance, it's long hours. It is long hours. So you have to be able to be adaptable and to be a little bit resilient, because if you've got a shoot that's like a 12-hour, 11-hour day, travelling there, add that back on there as well. You've got to be used to the long hours. It's just dependent. If you're freelance, it's long hours. If you go in-house, it's shorter hours. But yeah, I would expect to be working beyond 9 to 5. That's why you've got to love what you do. Yeah,
absolutely.
Does anyone else to share an hour before we move to the next question?
I would say on paper, I'm 9:30 to 6:30, but that's on paper. In reality, it's like, let's see how the day is going. In a nutshell.
Yeah, I've got a beautiful, tidy 9 to 6. However, if I need to get something over the finish line, then we won't until it's done. But for me, it's never really beyond 7, so it's quite good.
I'd say for me, so yeah, on paper it's 10 till 6:30 on paper. So I have kind of a late start technically, but I usually start at about 9 and finish at about 7. Sometimes I'll start at 8 and finish at 8. Kind of depends on the day. So like it varies. Yeah.
Amazing. Let's shoot to the next question.
Okay, so we have. How have you found working with a demanding editor? Do you want to take that, or I'll take it first?
Go for it.
So for me, it's always a learning experience, and I kind of learn from that to be more efficient, to meet tighter deadlines than the already tight deadlines, and I'm able to kind of demonstrate those people management skills again that I mentioned, and also you learn to be diplomatic and try to accommodate the needs of the editor as best as you can, within reason, but you also want to kind of set clear boundaries as well, so what is and isn't achievable, and kind of balancing the workload. So it's just a learning curve, it's just a learning experience. What about you guys, opening it up to the floor?
Well, I can't contribute much in terms of like the editor being demanding because I am the editor.
But are you demanding?
No, I'm lovely. But I think my equivalent would be the client. So sometimes you have clients who will change on every single version. There's something that's coming up, or in summary, you can have demanding clients. And it's the same kind of thing that you were saying, Jasmine. You've just got to try and, sometimes it's a matter of communication. If it's all by email, sometimes you've got to say, you know what, no, we're going to have a video call and we're going to actually talk this out through step by step. And then you actually end up finding that, that's kind of faster. So I think finding different ways to work with different clients. And once you've figured out, maybe like once you've done it once or twice with a client, you actually start to figure out what it is that they want and you preempt that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Anyone else?
I probably am not best placed to answer that question really either. Like, or across features, the editor really has the relationship they have with the director, and they've got to find their own groove with each other. We're more there to like oversee and feed into the process where we need to, but let's continue.
That makes sense. I think it was more specific to editorial and post-production. So we have one in the chat. How do you find the balance between making others' job easier and avoiding burnout from doing too much? It's a really good question.
And I was looking at that question and I was thinking, how have I done that in the past? Because I think I've thought about that as well. I think it's really important to have your own boundaries, as you should have a lot of things in life. But whether it's working past a certain time, saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to log on at 7:30 and do something that's going to make me feel like I can chill out and not have to think about work. But you don't want to do too much. You don't want to make your job unpleasurable. Like, you want to be able to still have the same passion and enjoy your job. And I think as long as you take breaks, have your hour lunches. Like at my first internship, my manager that I used to work with would always say, make sure you take your lunch, like have that hour to yourself. And as long as you know that you have your own boundaries in work, you feel a lot more comfortable working. So yeah, I think that's the tip to that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
I don't have like anything like Slack or Teams on my phone. So once I leave the office, I'm finished work. Like, I have a separate boundaries. I don't mix the two, because if someone asks you something on Slack, or they ask you to do something, let's say you're just outside the office, like, yeah, you could go and it's only going to take you 5 minutes, but you've left the office, you're done now. So it's having that separation. And also, like Karen was saying, take your lunch break, don't sit and eat lunch at your desk if you can help it. Go out, like what I used to do when I was a runner. I could not afford to be eating out every single day. I would have my little pot of pasta, I'd microwave it, and I'd go to the Costa across the road, and I'd buy like the cheapest thing possible, and I'd sit in there for the whole hour. I didn't want to know at all from anyone else. And it's just nice because you switch off. You're so social all day, you're talking, you're doing all of this stuff, and you just want to. So find out what you want to do on your lunch break. What makes you decompress,
I think that's a great top tip, going to Costa and sitting there for the whole hour. Have we got any more questions, Jazz, or have we reached the end of our comment section?
We have one more.
Brilliant.
The last one, and it is, so again, it was specific to an assistant editor, but we can open it up. Is there anything you would do differently as an assistant editor, or is there anything you would do differently in your career as a whole? I can start us off, or... Wait, what did you say, Laura?
I said, what's a question?
I know. I'll start us off. Okay, so for me, I would say speaking up sooner and recognising my worth and my value and my talent and my skills. I think I've only started doing that very recently, and I think for a lot of people, myself included, when I first started out, your kind of thought process is, well, I'm grateful to have this job and this job offer at all, because it's so difficult to get a job in the industry as it is, and it's difficult to pave your way, so I'm just going to take what's being offered to me. And a lot of the time that involves kind of making sacrifices. It might be a lot less pay than you need to make ends meet, kind of like what Jemima was saying in the comments. Or for me, it's a 1.5 hour commute to the office 5 days a week into London, which isn't viable for a good work-life balance. So yeah, I would speak up about kind of what works for me and kind of negotiate rates, and just having that confidence in your ability and your talent, and knowing your worth.
I think that's a really good one. I think you're right. I would eradicate imposter syndrome, which I think a lot of people do suffer from. And be aware of your own talent and your own abilities, like you said, Jasmine. I think it's so important. But yeah, anybody else?
I would say that I it would have really helped me out had I known how to apply for jobs, where to look, and all of these things. Because I first graduated, and then I was looking at, you know, applying directly to places, but I didn't think of the fact that there are recruitment agencies that specifically work within post-production or within graphic design, within digital. Like, there's so much out there that actually makes it so much more easier for you, and I didn't realize that. And I think also I looked at things with I had tunnel vision, but I didn't open up to the idea of actually, like, there's this role in this area. Kind of really how I got into digital, actually, because I just didn't really know what I was looking for. But then, you know, yeah, like, speak to people who are around, you know, lecturers, and keep in touch with, you know, your classmates or whomever, because they'll help you look.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that was that our final question. Has anybody else got anything else to add to that? That was our last and final question for this evening. So I'm going to do my little speech again. And thank you very much for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Thank you for the amazing panel. You've all been absolutely brilliant. Karen, Laura and Angie, thank you so much for doing this as well. Just everything that we've touched base on today, I think we've delivered what we wanted to, a very insightful discussion. And again, you can reach out to us at any time. Here's details for Ebony Elite, our Instagram at ebony_mentors, our email, and of course our website as well. And of course, Jasmin's brilliant BWIPP network, information of how to contact. I've said enough. I'm going to officially stop talking. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you'll join us on our next event as well, which we hopefully will do very, very soon. Thank you and good evening.